There's a moment in every life when love stops being about butterflies and starts being about bandwidth. When you stop asking who makes me feel good and start asking who helps me grow. I've seen it. People promise forever but disappear when the storm hits. But the one who truly loves you, they don't promise comfort. They build courage beside you. Look, real love doesn't chase perfection. It studies your pain. It doesn't fix you. It understands you. And when everything feels like it's falling apart, they don't hand you excuses. They hand you truth. I know this hurts. I know what it feels like to outlove someone who's still learning how to care. But keep your heart steady. Because a person who truly loves you won't ask, "Why aren't you enough?" They'll ask, "How can I stand with you? And how can we rise together?" That's the difference between attention and allegiance, between romance and real partnership. There's a kind of silence that happens before love begins. Not the romantic silence of two people staring into each other's eyes. No. This one's deeper. It's the silence that comes when someone finally sees you. Not the surface you, not the version you learned to perform to survive, but the real, unedited, unfinished, messy you. I remember the first time it happened to me. I was sitting across from someone who didn't rush to fill the quiet. They just looked at me, not judging, not analyzing, just being there. And for a moment, I felt stripped of every defense. No achievement, no charm, no mask. Just me. It was uncomfortable. But in that discomfort, something holy happened. Recognition. See, love doesn't start when two people agree. It starts when they acknowledge what is. And most people never get that far, because recognition requires honesty. It's easier to love the version of someone that fits your expectations than the one that challenges them. But real love, the kind that endures, demands that you meet truth head on. Look, most people don't want to be seen. They want to be celebrated. They want applause, not awareness. But here's the thing. You can't heal what you hide, and you can't grow in a relationship built on illusions. Sooner or later, truth will knock on the door. And the person who truly loves you, they'll open it with you, not against you. There's a difference between attraction and recognition. Attraction notices beauty. Recognition notices being. Attraction says, "You're stunning." Recognition says, "You're safe here." Attraction fades when the lights dim. Recognition grows stronger in the dark. And I know that sounds poetic, but it's not poetry. It's survival. Because if you've ever been loved for your image, you know how exhausting it is to keep the mask from slipping. The smile that hides anxiety. The confidence that hides fear. The laughter that hides loneliness. But when someone truly recognizes you, you exhale. You stop performing. Your nervous system finally relaxes because your soul feels understood. Real talk. Not everyone can handle your truth. Not everyone deserves access to your unfiltered story. Some people only want the highlight reel. Others want the broken version because it makes them feel needed. Both are incomplete. Recognition lives in the middle, where empathy meets honesty, where someone says, "I see the light in you, but I'm not afraid of your shadows." And that's what love really is. It's not rescuing someone from their darkness. It's sitting beside them until they can see their own light again. I know this hurts. I know how it feels to pour your soul out to someone who looks back like they're reading a foreign language. You start to wonder if maybe you're too complicated, too sensitive, too intense. But no, you're just in the wrong room. The right person won't be overwhelmed by your depth. They'll dive with you. Recognition is the moment the pretending stops. It's when love shifts from fantasy to foundation. It's when two people stop auditioning and start existing. Imagine a sculptor standing before raw marble. He doesn't see a block of stone. He sees the form waiting inside. Every chip, every strike of the chisel brings it closer to revelation. That's recognition. Seeing potential without denying the process. Loving what is while believing in what can be. And here's another truth. Recognition isn't always romantic. It can come from a friend, a mentor, a stranger who says one sentence that rearranges your understanding of yourself. Because love, real love, isn't always a feeling. Sometimes it's a mirror. Sometimes it's the moment someone's honesty saves you from your own denial. I've been there, standing in front of people who said they cared, but what they really wanted was a version of me that made them comfortable. I kept shrinking to fit into their vision until one day I realized the smaller I became, the quieter my spirit grew. And love that demands your silence isn't love. It's control wearing perfume. So ask yourself, who in your life sees you without editing? Who listens when you speak from the wound, not just the wisdom? Who stands still when your voice shakes? That's recognition. And it's rare. Sometimes it arrives disguised as conflict. Because the person who truly sees you will challenge you. They'll call out the habits that hurt you. They'll tell you when your anger isn't passion, it's pain. They'll hold up the mirror and ask, "Is this really you?" And it might sting, but that sting is growth calling your name. And yes, sometimes recognition hurts more than rejection. Because when someone truly sees you and still walks away, it cuts deeper. But don't mistake their departure for your unworthiness. It's just proof that not everyone is built to love truth. Some hearts prefer the comfort of illusion. You can't make someone recognize you. You can only keep being real enough for the right person to find you. Here's the beautiful part. Recognition doesn't only come from others. It starts within. Before anyone can truly love you, you must see yourself. Not your achievements, not your mistakes, your essence. That's the mirror moment. It's the day you stop chasing validation and start offering understanding. You become your own witness. And when you do, everything changes. You stop begging to be chosen because you realize you already are. You stop performing for attention because presence becomes your power. And that's when love finds you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. See, the person who truly loves you won't be intimidated by your history. They'll want to know it. They won't be afraid of your silence. They'll listen to it. They won't just celebrate your strength, they'll protect your softness. Recognition doesn't need loud declarations. It lives in the quiet gestures, remembering what makes you anxious, noticing when your eyes dim, holding space when your words stumble. It's not about fixing, it's about feeling with. And look, I'm not saying love is easy. It's not. Sometimes recognition takes years. Sometimes it shows up after heartbreak, when you've lost faith in people. But when it comes, it feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. You realize love was never supposed to complete you. It was supposed to reveal you. Every person you meet holds a mirror. Some reflect your insecurities. Some reflect your potential. But only a few reflect your truth. Cherish those few. They are the architects of your becoming. Because when someone truly recognizes you, they don't add pressure. They add peace. They don't demand change. They inspire it. And suddenly, you're not fighting for love anymore. You're growing through it. Recognition is the soil from which all real love grows. Without it, everything else is performance. With it, even silence becomes connection. And that's where love begins, not in the spark, but in the seeing. Not in the fantasy, but in the familiarity of two souls saying, I see you, all of you, and I'm not leaving. Love, at its core, isn't luck. It's a decision repeated in the dark. It's what you choose when your emotions cool, when the words aren't easy, when the silence between you feels like a canyon. Ownership is that quiet strength that refuses to flee at the first sign of friction. See, anyone can love when it's simple. Anyone can smile when everything flows. But the measure of real connection is what happens when the road cracks. When misunderstandings pile up. When the person who once felt like home suddenly feels like a stranger in the same room. That's where love is tested. Not in the laughter, but in the stillness after the storm. I've seen people walk away the moment the script changes. They think difficulty means disaster. But the truth is, pressure doesn't destroy love. It reveals its structure. And ownership is the foundation that keeps it standing. Look, when two people collide, there will be friction. Words will slip. Patience will thin. But ownership says, I'm not here to win. I'm here to understand. It's the courage to say, that one's on me. No excuses. No blame shifting. Just truth. The hardest thing you'll ever do in love isn't forgiving someone else. It's confronting your own part in the chaos. Because the ego always wants to be right. It feeds on defense, thrives on control. But ownership strips all that away. It replaces pride with purpose. And that's rare. Because most people aren't taught how to own their presence in someone else's pain. They're taught to justify, to rationalize, to point fingers. But love, real love, demands maturity. It says, if I said it, I'll stand by it. If I broke it, I'll fix it. If I caused it, I'll learn from it. You can't build forever with someone who refuses to take responsibility. Affection without accountability is just performance. It feels good in the moment, but it collapses under truth. And I know, ownership hurts. It's humbling to admit you were wrong. It's terrifying to look at someone you love and confess, I hurt you. But that's where growth lives. In that trembling honesty. Because love doesn't require perfection. It requires participation. And participation means owning your impact, even when your intentions were pure. You can't heal what you deny. You can't rebuild what you refuse to acknowledge. Ownership is what separates lovers from leavers. The ones who love for real don't vanish when tension rises. They lean in. They say, let's talk about it. Not to argue, but to understand. They don't keep score. They keep effort. They don't weaponize silence. They use it to listen. I've seen couples who lasted decades, not because they never argued, but because they learned to argue with grace. They made mistakes, but they made them together. And that's the secret. Unity doesn't mean harmony every day. It means choosing to fight for each other instead of against each other. Real talk. Sometimes you'll want to quit. Not just think about it, you'll plan your exit. You'll replay every disappointment, every moment of misunderstanding. But before you walk away, ask yourself one question. Have I owned my part? It's easy to leave when you see the other person's flaws. It's harder when you recognize your reflection in them. And listen, there's a difference between ownership and self-blame. Ownership doesn't mean absorbing all the fault. It means acknowledging your truth with clarity and compassion. It means saying, this is what I can do better, without drowning in guilt. The person who truly loves you will meet you there. They won't use your honesty against you. They'll honor it. They'll say, thank you for seeing me enough to see yourself too. That's partnership. That's the kind of accountability that transforms love from temporary comfort into lasting connection. Because ownership creates safety. When someone knows you'll take responsibility, they can finally relax. They stop walking on eggshells. They stop wondering if their feelings will be dismissed. They trust that when things get messy, you won't hide behind excuses. You'll stand beside them and do the work. And that's the key phrase, do the work. Love without work is wishful thinking. You can't sustain a relationship on chemistry alone. You need commitment that breathes through the rough days. And ownership is that breath, the steady inhale of humility, the exhale of growth. Sometimes ownership looks like saying sorry first. Sometimes it's sitting in silence until you calm enough to hear what they're really saying. Sometimes it's giving space without punishment. Sometimes it's learning that your tone can wound, even when your words sound right. And here's the hardest part. Ownership requires consistency. It's not a one-time apology. It's a lifestyle. It's proving every day that you've learned, not just that you've listened. Growth is invisible at first. People won't always notice the new patience, the softer responses, the moments you choose peace instead of pride. But love notices. And over time, that effort becomes the heartbeat of your relationship. Look back on your life. Every relationship that broke taught you something about ownership. Maybe you learned what happens when you refuse to admit fault. Maybe you learned that silence can be just as loud as shouting. Or maybe you learned that taking responsibility doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. And that's the paradox. Ownership isn't control. It's release. When you own your mistakes, they stop owning you. When you face your flaws, they stop dictating your future. Love isn't about never falling short. It's about how you rise afterward. Ownership is the act of rising together. Think about a bridge. It doesn't collapse because of weight. It collapses because its joints stop flexing. The same is true for love. Ownership is the flexibility, the willingness to bend, not break. It absorbs the tension, redistributes it, and keeps the structure standing. The people who last aren't the ones who never argue. They're the ones who argue and still choose to stay. They still show up. They still try. They still care enough to own their contribution to the pain and to the healing. You can't fake that kind of love. It's too real, too demanding, too refining. And yet, it's the only kind worth having. I know sometimes you'll feel like you're giving more than you're receiving. Ownership can feel one-sided when the other person isn't ready, but remember, your integrity isn't dependent on their maturity. Owning your truth keeps your soul clean. It teaches you how to love without losing yourself. Because here's what people forget. You can walk away with peace if you've done your part. You don't need closure from someone who never learned to own theirs. Your closure comes from knowing you showed up honestly. Ownership is the difference between running from growth and walking through it. And every time you walk through it, you become a little more grounded. The day you stop deflecting, the day you stop explaining why you were justified, the day you stop defending your worst moments and start learning from them, that's the day love becomes real. Not perfect, real. And real love is messy. It's confusing. It's humbling. But it's sacred work. The beauty of ownership is that it creates trust strong enough to hold two imperfect people. It makes room for mistakes, for healing, for trying again. It gives love a spine, structure beneath the softness. So, if you find someone who owns their truth, who apologizes without ego, who communicates instead of punishing, protect that. Nurture that. Because that's rare. And if you are that person, keep being that, even if others don't meet you there yet. Your consistency becomes a lesson for those who still think love is about control instead of commitment. In the end, ownership is how you prove that your love isn't built on conditions. It's built on choice, and choices define character. When the noise fades and the emotions settle, it's not the grand gestures that hold love together. It's the quiet responsibility of showing up. Staying when it's hard doesn't mean tolerating pain without boundaries. It means fighting for growth instead of giving up at discomfort. It's knowing that love worth having will stretch you, but it will never strip you of yourself. And that's what ownership really is, not surrendering to pain, but surrendering to truth. Because truth, even when it hurts, always heals what pretending cannot. And the ones who understand that, they don't just stay when it's hard. They stay because it's hard. They stay because growth, not comfort, was always the point. There's a difference between someone who says, "I love you," and someone who proves it. Words are easy. They cost nothing. They flow like water when emotions are high, when the lights are dim, when life feels beautiful and safe. But action is heavy. It costs time, effort, ego, and consistency. That's where most people disappear. Because real love doesn't live in what you say. It lives in what you do when no one is watching. You see, anyone can make promises in the warmth of the moment. I'll change. I'll be there. I'll never hurt you again. But life has a way of testing those words. Sooner or later, you'll face a moment that asks, do you still mean it when it's inconvenient? when it's uncomfortable, when it's no longer easy. That's where love reveals its true face. A person who truly loves you doesn't need to announce their loyalty. You feel it in their actions. You see it in the way they remember what matters to you. How they show up when you're tired, lost, or broken. They don't vanish when storms hit. They hold the umbrella even when it's pouring on them too. They don't always get it right. They'll make mistakes, say things they don't mean, get angry, stumble. But the difference is, they come back. They apologize. They adjust. They grow. Because love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about intention followed by action. Love that only speaks stays in the mind. Love that acts stays in the soul. Think about it. When was the last time someone's words healed you? They might have comforted you for a while, but words without action lose their power over time. The same, "I'll do better next time," starts sounding like background noise when there's no proof behind it. Because your heart, no matter how forgiving it is, eventually learns the difference between hope and habit. That's why the most dangerous kind of love is empty reassurance. The kind that says everything right but does nothing right. The kind that keeps you waiting, keeps you believing, keeps you trapped in potential, not reality. And yet we stay because we want to believe. We want to believe that one day they'll mean it, that one day their words will match their behavior. But here's the truth. A person's priorities are revealed by what they repeat. If someone repeatedly chooses convenience over you, comfort over effort, silence over communication, that's not love. That's attachment. That's comfort in having you around without doing the work to deserve you. Real love doesn't run from effort. It runs toward it. Because love that shows up in 1,000 small ways. It's the message that checks on you even when you didn't ask. It's remembering your dreams, even the silly ones. It's defending you when you're not there to hear it. It's being honest when lying would have been easier. It's choosing peace instead of pride during a fight. It's showing patience when life tests both of you. It's caring about what hurts you, even when they're not the cause of it. That's love, not loud, not dramatic, but present. And I'll tell you something from experience. If someone truly loves you, they'll fight their own habits to keep you safe. They'll face their flaws instead of hiding behind them. They'll grow because they want to, not because you beg them to. That's what makes the difference between someone who loves you and someone who just loves your presence. The ones who love your presence enjoy your light. The ones who love you protect it. So don't let pretty words confuse you. If love doesn't move, it's not real. You deserve a love that doesn't flinch when things get hard. A love that chooses you, even on the days you're not easy to love. A love that doesn't need reminders to care, to check in, to show up. Because showing up, that's the purest expression of love there is. When someone truly loves you, they don't look for convenience, they look for connection. They don't measure the relationship by what's easy, but by what's worth it. And when you mean something to them, your silence worries them, your struggles move them, your happiness matters to them more than their ego. That's the kind of love that changes you. That's the kind of love that heals. Let me tell you a truth that most people learn too late. Promises don't build relationships. Patterns do. If someone says they care, but their actions keep breaking you, you're not in love. You're in denial. If they keep saying, I'll change but never do, you're holding on to potential, not a person. If they keep disappearing every time you need them most, you're not losing love. You're losing your illusion of it. The most peaceful day of your life will be the day you stop believing words and start reading actions. Actions never lie. Think of love like a language. Everyone can say the word love, but not everyone can speak it fluently. Some say it through attention, some through time, some through sacrifice, some through gentle correction. But the rare ones, the real ones, speak it through consistency. Consistency is the love language that outlasts everything. Because consistency is boring to the wrong person, but sacred to the right one. So, ask yourself, who in your life is showing up? Who's standing beside you when it's inconvenient? Who's proving love through effort, not excuses? And if you're lucky enough to have that person, hold them, cherish them, match their energy. Because love that shows up deserves to be met halfway. But if you're the one always showing up, always proving, always forgiving, always carrying the weight, then maybe the question isn't, do they love me? But why am I accepting less than I give? Because love that's real doesn't drain you. It refills you. It doesn't make you question your worth. It reminds you of it. A person who truly loves you doesn't need to promise the world. They build a small one with you, piece by piece, moment by moment. They don't promise forever. They prove today. And they don't need to say, trust me, because their actions already did the talking. So, stop chasing words. Watch what people do when things get quiet, when nobody's watching, when there's nothing to gain. That's when love reveals itself. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about finding someone who says, I'll never hurt you. It's about finding someone who says, if I ever do, I'll make it right. And then does. That's action. That's effort. That's love that shows up. Not just speaks up. Every relationship stumbles. Sometimes it's over something small. A careless word, a forgotten promise, a moment of pride that cuts deeper than it should. Sometimes it's something bigger. Betrayal, silence, distance that grows like frost between two hearts that once burned with fire. But here's the truth that few want to hear. Every love story worth keeping will fall apart at least once. The test isn't how perfectly you avoid failure. It's how courageously you learn from it. Because failure is the mirror that love hates to look into. Yet it's the only one that shows what's real. When you truly love someone, failure doesn't end the story. It simply forces you to rewrite it with more honesty. The one who truly loves you doesn't rush to assign blame. They pause. They breathe. They reflect. They ask, what did we miss? What part of you did I not understand? What part of me did I stop protecting? That pause, that willingness to face the ugly, is what separates real love from emotional convenience. Because failure is inevitable, but resentment is optional. You see, love isn't about two people who fit perfectly together. It's about two people who are willing to grow through imperfection. The world teaches us to run when things break. We scroll, we replace, we start over. But genuine connection isn't a disposable experience. It's a commitment to rebuild when it would have been easier to walk away. A person who truly loves you doesn't see failure as the end. They see it as the invitation to go deeper, to rediscover what's been forgotten, to learn your rhythm again, to hold your heart with a little more care than before. They don't use failure as a weapon. They use it as a teacher. Real love understands that pain is not always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. Because every stumble together teaches something vital: how to listen without defending, how to forgive without forgetting lessons, how to stand beside each other when the easy thing would be to turn away. And if you pay attention, every argument, every silence, every heartbreak becomes a classroom, teaching you the art of staying. Yes, love is art, but it's not painted with constant joy. It's painted with correction, patience, and the courage to keep creating even after the canvas gets messy. Think about this. When you fell as a child, someone told you, "It's okay, get up." You didn't quit walking because you stumbled. You learned balance through falling. That's exactly how love matures. You fall, you learn, you adjust. You discover where your limits are and where theirs begin. You realize that loving someone isn't about avoiding pain, it's about transforming it. Because when love survives failure, it comes back stronger, wiser, and softer all at once. But here's where most people get it wrong. They mistake perfection for safety. They believe if love is real, it shouldn't hurt, it shouldn't break, it shouldn't fail. That's a lie. Even the strongest bridges shake in a storm. But the ones built on truth don't collapse. A person who truly loves you won't let failure become a competition. They won't keep a scorecard of mistakes. They won't weaponize your weaknesses. Instead, they'll meet you in the wreckage, roll up their sleeves, and say, "Let's fix this." Because they know that healing isn't a solo act. It's a duet. The beauty of falling forward together is this: when you fall, you discover who reaches for your hand without hesitation. Not the ones who say, "I told you so." Not the ones who disappear until the dust settles, but the ones who kneel beside you, lift your chin, and whisper, "We're still us. We'll figure this out." That's love. Not the highlight reel, not the Instagram version, but the unfiltered truth. Messy, humbling, sacred. Failure teaches two things every couple must learn: communication and compassion. Communication without compassion turns truth into a weapon. Compassion without communication turns silence into distance. But when both exist together, when truth is spoken with love, and love listens without pride, that's when transformation begins. You start to see that failure isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's the universe saying, if you want to keep this love, learn to handle it with more wisdom than before. Every scar between two people tells a story of misunderstanding, then forgiveness, of losing balance, then finding rhythm again, of pride collapsing, then humility building a stronger bridge. That's why old couples who've been together for decades don't talk about perfect love. They talk about patience, about learning each other again and again, about staying when the world said go. They'll tell you, love isn't something you fall into once. It's something you choose after every fall. Sometimes falling forward together means stepping back first, taking space, breathing, letting wounds close before touching them again. Because love without boundaries becomes survival, not growth. A person who truly loves you knows when to hold on and when to let both of you heal. They understand that silence can sometimes say more than shouting. That walking away for clarity isn't betrayal, it's care. Because real love doesn't panic when it's tested. It pauses. It learns. It returns with more purpose. Let me tell you something you won't find in romantic movies. The deepest connections aren't built on constant happiness. They're built on repair. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about mastering recovery. It's not about never falling apart. It's about never giving up on putting the pieces back together. And when both people commit to learning that rhythm, falling, forgiving, rebuilding, something magical happens. Trust becomes unshakable. Respect becomes automatic. And love becomes real. If you ever find someone who's willing to face failure with you, don't let them go. Because most people will celebrate with you in the light, but only a few will sit with you in the dark. And those who do, those who stay through confusion, who hold you when you're not easy to love, who fight beside you when it would have been easier to quit, that's not weakness, that's loyalty. That's love that's earned its name. So when failure comes, and it will, don't see it as the end. See it as the invitation to begin again with better understanding. Ask, what is this teaching us? What are we meant to outgrow? What version of ourselves must die so that something stronger can be born? Because every failure in love, when handled with courage, births a new kind of wisdom, one that no comfort zone could ever teach. And someday, when you look back, you'll realize the moments that almost broke you actually built the version of love you were always praying for. Love that has never fallen can't understand depth. But love that has fallen, learned, and risen again, that love becomes unshakable. That love doesn't fear mistakes. That love knows how to bend without breaking. That love has rhythm. The rhythm of falling forward together. There's a quiet architecture to love, not marble columns or fireworks, but the small, invisible structures that let two people breathe without shrinking. Environment is that architecture. It's the room where honesty can be spoken without armor, the rhythm where curiosity is welcomed instead of crushed, the safe soil where seeds of change have room to root. Look, love needs air. It dies slow in places that micromanage feelings, in rooms that catalog mistakes like evidence. Control suffocates. Control confuses caring with ownership. A partner worth keeping knows the difference. They protect the atmosphere around both of you so growth becomes possible instead of punished. Think of a garden. If you crowd a plant, it starves for light. If you never prune, disease spreads. If you change the soil every week, nothing settles. A healthy garden needs regular care. Shade where needed, water in season, pruning when a branch goes rotten. The same goes for relationships. Environment is the gardener's hand. It's the daily tending that keeps love alive. There are 3 essential rules to tend that garden: room, rhythm, and removal. First, room. People arrive broken or brilliant, sometimes both. A protective environment gives them space to be unfinished. It allows someone to show a new side without being punished for it. You don't ask them to perform stability. You give them a place to practice it. That's why recognition matters. Because before you can grow, you must be seen as you are. When someone's wounds show, a guarded environment doesn't recoil, it leans in and whispers, "Take your time." Second, rhythm. Love is not constant intensity. It's a pattern of closeness and independence, discussion and silence, repair and celebration. A healthy environment follows that rhythm instead of demanding constant fireworks. That's ownership and action working together. When both people learn to return after the storm instead of fleeing at the first wind. Rhythm teaches patience. Rhythm teaches that sometimes the most loving thing is to wait until the other can hold themselves. Third, removal. Pruning hurts. You cut to save the tree. In relationships, removal means ejecting what poisons the space. Gossip, passive aggression, cheap comparisons, people who harvest your esteem instead of nourish it. Legacy shows up here. What you allow in your environment becomes the invisible inheritance you pass along. Tolerate toxicity and your children, your friends, your future self inherit that chaos. Protect the space, and you protect what love will teach later. Here's the thing. Protecting the environment is not about perfection. It's not a moral litmus test where anyone failing means doom. It's a practice. Failure taught you this in the previous part of the journey. The couple that survived the storm did so because they rebuilt the space around them, not because the storm never happened. Legacy shows you the payoff. The quiet lesson that the room you create today becomes the culture your love leaves behind tomorrow. Practical. Listen, structure matters. Not the kind that cages, but the kind that gently orients. Small rituals, a 10-minute check-in, a no-phone dinner, a nightly question that isn't accusatory but curious. These are scaffolds that create predictability. Predictability breeds safety. Safety breeds truth. Truth grows into transformation. These rituals are not romance cliches. They are tools of discipline. They are the quiet actions that turn affection into a habitat where both of you can become more than you were. And real talk. Boundaries are part of protecting the environment. Boundaries are not walls. They are the fence that keeps out predators and allows a garden to flourish. Sometimes boundaries mean saying no to friends who gossip about your partner. Sometimes they mean refusing to be baited into old fights. Sometimes they mean walking away for a time so wounds can close without infection. Boundaries keep dignity alive. They teach respect. And yes, they can be uncomfortable. Good. Anything worth growing will stretch you. Another truth. Environment is contagious. The way you speak when you're tired becomes a pattern. The way you apologize becomes the local grammar of the space. If neglect becomes the default, neglect multiplies. If curiosity becomes the habit, curiosity echoes. That's why daily discipline matters more than dramatic apologies. Small, consistent acts shape the atmosphere more than once. In a year declarations, action, remember, tells the story. The words promise. Listen, people confuse shelter with stagnation. A safe environment does not mean you stop challenging each other. It means you challenge with care. It means you interrogate motives rather than attack character. It means you prune with intent, not rage. Growth requires friction sometimes, but the kind that refines, not shreds. Leadership in a relationship is the ability to call for change without annihilating the person you love. That kind of leadership protects the space because it values the long game over quick wins. And here's a hard honesty. Sometimes the most loving environment you can create is to leave. Not every toxic pattern is fixable. Not every partner is willing to tend the garden. Legacy taught you that love's imprint lasts even after people go. If the soil is poisoned and the person refuses to change the conditions, your stewardship requires courage to walk away and plant elsewhere, or to rebuild boundaries so you can heal. Leaving, when it is done with integrity, is not failure. It is preservation of the space you were meant to inhabit. Culture matters. The stories you tell each other about who you are. We're patient, we fight fair, we protect truth. Those stories become the climate. Choose them deliberately. Say them often. Rehearse them with actions. When crisis hits, you'll rely on that culture to guide you. Remember failure? Couples who rebound don't just have luck. They have a practiced language of repair. They've rehearsed the gestures that restore environment, the apology that admits specifics, the concrete step that rebuilds trust, the small, consistent kindness that signals safety. Practical examples. Protect your environment by limiting third-party interference. Stop doing relationship diagnosis in group chats. Keep your private work private and your repair work pair first. Protect emotional bandwidth by scheduling conflict times instead of unleashing on tired evenings. Prioritize sleep, because decision-making while exhausted is toxicity's best friend. Protect your environment by refusing to weaponize children, money, or social capital in arguments. These are specifics, not ideals. Discipline here. Safety later. Finally, remember legacy again. The environment you protect now becomes the example you pass to those who watch you. Children, friends, younger siblings, they absorb the atmosphere like light. They learn what a relationship looks like because of how you tend your space. When you guard peace as if it's a garden, you teach future gardeners how to care. That is the deepest kind of success. It's not a trophy. It's a temperament passed from heart to heart. So start small. Create a micro ritual today. Close the laptop at dinner. Ask one honest question without judgment. Prune one habit that steals your peace. Celebrate one repair rather than re-entrenching blame. These tiny acts build a breathable environment. They teach the people you love that growth is safe. And when storms come, as they will, you'll have a room to return to. Not perfect, not untouched, but tended. A place where failure becomes a lesson, where legacy becomes a compass, where leadership is service, and where love is an ongoing project of care. Protect the space you both grow in. Tend it like a garden. Not because love owes you ease, but because love deserves to become wild and wise in a habitat that lets it breathe. Not every love story is meant to last forever in time, but every real love story lasts forever in impact. When you've truly loved, you never walk away the same person you were when you started. Something inside you shifts. Quietly, permanently. It might be the way you listen now, the way you speak more carefully, the way you carry yourself with a little more grace, a little more strength. That's the legacy of love. Not the pictures, not the messages, not the anniversaries that faded. It's what stays inside you when the noise is gone. Most people think legacy is something you leave behind when you die. But real legacy begins with how you live after love has changed you. Because love leaves fingerprints on your soul, invisible to the world, but clear to you. It teaches patience in ways no lecture could. It teaches empathy in moments when you could have chosen anger. It teaches self-respect when you finally learn that giving everything isn't the same as losing yourself. That's the sacred part. Love's invisible education. Look, when someone walks into your life and truly cares, they don't just share your days. They rearrange your perspective. They make you see the world through their eyes for a while. And even when they're gone, some part of that vision stays with you. Maybe you're kinder now. Maybe you're softer with people who are trying. Maybe you set stronger boundaries because you finally understand your worth. That's legacy. That's love's echo long after the voice is silent. And here's the thing, not every relationship will end in harmony. Some will fade, some will fracture, some will leave a scar. But even scars have stories. A scar means you survived something that once cut deep. And healing happened. You learned, you grew, you moved differently after that pain. So when you trace those scars in your memory, don't resent them. They're proof that love taught you resilience. They're reminders that even when it hurt, you still chose to care. That's a legacy no failure can erase. I've seen people walk away from each other with bitterness so heavy it bends their spirit. But years later, they talk about that same person and smile, not because the pain vanished, but because they finally understood the lesson. Maybe that heartbreak taught them honesty. Maybe it forced them to grow up. Maybe it made them capable of loving deeper next time. That's what real legacy does. It transforms pain into wisdom. It turns memory into guidance. And sometimes, legacy shows up in the smallest ways. In the way you comfort a friend going through what you once went through. In the advice you give that starts with, "I know how that feels." In the quiet strength you show when everyone else is panicking. That's your heart passing down what it learned, not through speeches, but through presence. Every person you've loved becomes a teacher, even the ones who disappointed you. Because every encounter carved a little more depth into your understanding of humanity. Love, at its purest, is education in disguise. Real talk, some of the greatest lessons you'll ever receive will come from people who couldn't stay. They might have walked away, but they left something with you. A truth, a mirror, a moment of awakening. And one day, when you treat someone better than you were treated, that's not coincidence. That's legacy doing its work. You're not just reacting differently, you're evolving consciously. That's growth that love gave you for free. There's a moment after the tears, after the confusion, when you realize you don't hate them anymore. You don't even wish they'd come back. You just hope they're okay, because you understand. The chapter ended, but the story shaped you. That's emotional maturity. That's legacy. It's not about possession, it's about transformation. You become a better guardian of hearts, including your own. Love's legacy is rarely loud. It whispers through your choices. It hides in your patience with strangers. It appears in how you forgive faster, how you protect your peace, how you thank life for both the beauty and the bruises. That's what stays long after the fireworks fade. That's the invisible gift that keeps shaping who you are becoming. Let's be honest. We don't always recognize legacy while it's forming. We just feel the ache, the confusion, the silence that follows goodbye. But months later, something happens. Maybe a random song, maybe a quiet morning. And you feel gratitude instead of grief. That's when you know love did its work. It finished its lesson. It completed the assignment. Every person who truly loved you became a sculptor, chiseling away what didn't belong, revealing more of who you were meant to be. That's why heartbreak and healing often come hand in hand. One breaks you open, the other rebuilds you wider. Think about the people who shaped your character. Not just the ones who stayed, but the ones who challenged you, tested you, or forced you to see your reflection. They might never know the depth of their impact, but you carry it. You carry their laughter, their words, their warnings. You carry the courage they once saw in you, even when you didn't. That's legacy. Invisible, but undeniable. And sometimes, legacy isn't about what love gave you. It's about what it took away. It stripped illusions. It burned away the ego. It humbled you. It taught you that love without respect isn't love, that attention isn't affection, and that chemistry without commitment is chaos. Painful lessons, yes, but vital ones, because wisdom built from loss lasts longer than happiness built on comfort. There's something beautiful about looking back and realizing every person who entered your life played their part in your evolution. Some showed you what love feels like. Others showed you what love is not. Both mattered. Both moved you closer to clarity. You see, legacy isn't about keeping everyone forever. It's about keeping what was true inside you forever. It's about remembering what each season taught you, not how long it lasted. And here's the quiet truth. Love that leaves a legacy doesn't need closure. It doesn't need to be reposted, proven, or explained. It just exists in how you live now, in how you show up to work with more empathy, in how you treat your parents, your friends, yourself, in how you no longer chase what disrespects your peace. Because love's final lesson is always this: everything that leaves also leaves something behind. So, when someone asks, do you still love them? Maybe the honest answer is, in a way, yes. But differently. You love the part of them that taught you strength. You love the part of yourself that learned endurance. You love the journey that revealed your worth. That's not weakness. That's gratitude. It means love fulfilled its purpose, even if it didn't fulfill your plan. Love's true legacy is character. It turns heartbreak into humility, loneliness into understanding, endings into beginnings. It makes you wiser with your words, softer with your judgments, clearer with your boundaries, and someday someone new will meet you and say, you feel safe. They'll never know it's because you once walked through fire and came out calm. They'll just feel the peace that legacy left behind. Remember this: love is the most powerful teacher life will ever send your way. It enters to awaken and it exits to evolve. You don't lose it, you absorb it. You become the living proof that love, even when it ends, never truly dies. It just changes form. So honor every chapter, even the painful ones, because they made you capable of deeper love, higher standards, and quieter strength. That's what real legacy looks like. Not in memories frozen in time, but in the person you've become because of them. And when you finally understand that, You stop chasing what left and start living what remained. Because love's truest victory isn't keeping someone forever. It's becoming someone forever changed by love. That's the invisible legacy. That's the echo that never fades. That's the lesson love leaves behind. Pain. It's the uninvited guest that enters every relationship. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives like a storm, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud enough to shake the walls. But here's the truth. Pain doesn't come to destroy what's real. It comes to reveal what's true. It is not the enemy of love. It is its purifier. Most people spend their lives running from pain. They think that love should always feel easy, always be filled with laughter and light. But the deeper truth is this: every connection worth keeping will pass through fire. Pain doesn't mean the love is dying. Sometimes it means the love is evolving. Because only what's false burns away in the fire. What's real remains. When you truly love someone, you don't hide from their wounds. You sit beside them. You don't try to fix them with empty words or rush them through their sorrow. You stay. You breathe with them through the silence. You become a witness, not a savior. Because real love doesn't fear brokenness, it recognizes it. It knows that pain, when shared with compassion, becomes a bridge instead of a wall. Think about it. Every time pain entered your life, something changed inside you. It refined you. It stripped you of illusions and demanded truth. In the same way, pain in relationships tests the foundation of connection. It exposes whether love was built on convenience or conviction. When life gets hard, when misunderstandings cut deep, when trust wavers, pain becomes the mirror. It asks both people, are you here for comfort or are you here for truth? The answer defines everything. If love was shallow, pain will end it. But if love was sacred, pain will deepen it. The cracks will not be signs of weakness. They will be proof that something powerful tried to grow there. Pain teaches patience. It slows the ego down. It reminds you that no soul is perfect and no heart is always soft. To love through pain means to see beyond the surface, to recognize the wounded child within your partner and within yourself. It's realizing that both of you are fighting unseen battles, and instead of judging, you choose to understand. Sometimes pain comes as silence. When words no longer bridge the gap, when presence feels distant. Other times, it comes as arguments, misunderstandings, mistakes. But even there, pain is not just chaos, it is communication. It's love's last attempt to be seen, to be heard. Underneath every painful argument lies a question. Do I still matter to you? Do you still see me? Am I safe to be myself here? Those questions can only be answered through action, through empathy, through consistency. Because pain doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. It doesn't need someone to have all the answers. It just needs someone who won't run away. You see, pain refines connection by burning away pride. When two people endure pain and still choose each other, not out of dependency, but out of growth, something changes between them. The love that emerges is not naive, it's aware. It's no longer a fantasy built on idealization. It's a bond shaped by experience, carved through tears, strengthened by forgiveness. Forgiveness. Not the kind that erases what happened, but the kind that says, I see your flaws and still choose your heart. That's how pain teaches depth. It transforms love from emotion to devotion. It turns affection into loyalty, attraction into purpose. Because once you've walked through pain with someone and both of you refuse to quit, you no longer love out of need, you love out of knowing. Pain, when embraced with honesty, also teaches boundaries. It reminds us that love without self-respect is not love. It's surrender. Real connection doesn't mean tolerating harm. It means confronting it together. Pain becomes the signal that something inside the relationship needs attention, not avoidance. It pushes both souls to evolve, to communicate more truthfully, to love with more clarity. There's a sacred paradox here. Pain can either divide or unite. It all depends on how both hearts respond. When one person uses pain as a weapon, love dies. But when both use it as a lesson, love is reborn stronger. It's like gold refined by fire. Before the heat, it's mixed with impurities. But under pressure, what's false melts away, and what's real shines brighter. The same happens to love. Every couple, every friendship, every soul bond will be tested. There will be days when love feels heavy, when conversations become cliffs, when misunderstanding builds walls. In those moments, remember, pain is not the end. It's the teacher. It's the moment love stops being a feeling and becomes a choice. Because to love someone through pain is to tell them, even when it hurts, I still see your worth. Some of the most profound relationships are not those that never broke, but those that broke and rebuilt. Pain teaches you how to hold someone gently, how to listen deeper, how to say sorry without ego. It teaches that silence can heal more than shouting ever could, and that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the doorway to intimacy. There's a story in every scar, a lesson in every tear. When you look at someone and see not their perfection, but their endurance, their courage to keep showing up despite the pain, that's when you truly connect. Pain becomes the thread that ties two souls, not just through joy, but through truth. When you stop running from pain, you begin to understand its language. It speaks softly, saying, "Don't close your heart." Because the moment you close your heart to pain, you also close it to love. You can't numb one without numbing the other. The courage to love is the courage to hurt. The courage to stay open when everything inside you wants to shut down. That's where transformation happens. Pain also teaches gratitude. When peace returns after storms, when laughter finally breaks through tears, you appreciate it more deeply. You learn not to take presence for granted. You learn that connection is fragile and that every moment of understanding is sacred. Pain refines you into someone who no longer chases perfection but honors growth. You begin to see love differently, not as constant happiness, but as constant evolution. You realize that the goal is not to avoid pain, but to transform it into wisdom. You start saying, "This hurt, but it taught me." You stop blaming life for its storms and start thanking it for its lessons. And one day, you look back at the moments that once broke you, and you realize they didn't destroy you, they shaped you. They burned away your arrogance, your impatience, your illusions of control. Pain made you gentler, more present, more real. It taught you that love is not proven in promises, but in how you hold each other when everything seems lost. So when pain visits your relationship, don't fear it. Sit with it. Ask what it's trying to teach you. Maybe it's reminding you to listen better. Maybe it's urging you to let go of pride. Maybe it's showing you that the person beside you isn't your enemy, but your mirror. Pain refines connection because it reveals truth. And truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. When you walk through pain together, you build trust not on fantasy, but on experience. You learn to love not because it's easy, but because it's real. So let pain do its work. Let it strip you of pretense. Let it humble you, teach you, refine you. Because in the end, it's not the easy days that define the depth of love. It's the days when everything shakes and you still choose to hold on. Pain doesn't destroy love. It purifies it. It doesn't end connection. It deepens it. It teaches you to see not just the beauty in someone's smile, but the story behind their scars. And that is where love becomes unbreakable. There are seasons in every relationship when nothing feels stable, when words don't land the same, when laughter fades faster than it used to, when one person drifts into silence and the other starts to question everything. It's in those seasons, when clarity disappears and doubt grows louder, that love is tested in its purest form, because real love isn't proven in the light. It's proven in the dark. Faith is not blind optimism. It's not pretending everything is fine when it's not. Faith is the quiet decision to keep believing in the good that's still unfolding, even when your eyes can't see it yet. It's standing beside someone when the path ahead is foggy, saying without words, "I still believe in you. I still believe in us." That kind of faith isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention or applause. It shows up quietly, consistently, in small acts of loyalty. It stays when leaving would be easier. It listens when the heart is tired. It loves not because circumstances are perfect, but because the connection is real. Faith and love is the courage to stay when evidence says, "Give up." You see, every relationship goes through invisible seasons, seasons where growth is happening beneath the surface. It's like winter in the soul. Everything looks barren, lifeless. But underneath, roots are expanding, preparing for spring. Faith sees what the eyes can't. It whispers, "This silence has a purpose. This distance is teaching us something. Growth is happening in unseen ways. When love is new, it's easy to believe. Everything glows. Every word feels alive. Every moment feels like destiny. But as time passes, the rhythm changes. Routine sets in. Real life begins to test the beauty of your connection. That's where faith becomes essential. Because feelings will fluctuate. That's human. But faith is what steadies the ship when emotions are unpredictable. Faith is not just belief in another person. It's belief in the process of becoming. It says, "I believe that who you are now is not all you will ever be." It holds space for growth, mistakes, healing, and transformation. It allows both people to evolve without fear of abandonment. Many people mistake love for certainty. They think loving someone means being sure every day that this is forever. But true love often feels uncertain. It demands vulnerability. It asks you to believe in a version of the story that hasn't been written yet. To believe that no matter how hard today feels, something sacred is still taking shape. When you believe in growth without evidence, you're choosing trust over control. You're saying, even though I can't see the end of this tunnel, I trust the process we're in. It doesn't mean ignoring red flags or pretending pain doesn't exist. It means recognizing that every relationship will have moments where one person needs space to rediscover themselves, and faith gives them that space without resentment. Faith is also deeply personal. Before you can have faith in someone else, you must have faith in yourself. Faith that you can handle uncertainty without falling apart. Faith that your heart can stay open even when it's scared. Without that inner foundation, external love becomes fragile. Because the moment things get shaky, fear takes over. But when your heart is anchored in faith, love can bend without breaking. There's beauty in the unseen. The kind of beauty that doesn't shout. It's in the moments when you look at the person you love and think, I know you're struggling right now, but I see the person you're becoming. That's faith. Loving not just who someone is, but who they're growing into. Every strong relationship you admire, every lasting bond, is built on this invisible faith. Not passion alone, not romance, but the quiet resilience to believe through the droughts. When life hits with storms, financial struggle, loss, distance, or emotional disconnect, the temptation is to measure love by what's visible. If they cared, they'd do this. If we were meant to be, it wouldn't feel this hard. But love isn't mathematics. It's not always logical. Sometimes the one who seems distant is simply fighting an inner battle they don't know how to describe. And faith is what keeps you from turning that battle into blame. It says, I'll hold the light until you find your way back. Faith in growth means refusing to reduce someone to their current struggle. It means remembering that every soul is in motion. We're all changing, breaking, healing, learning. You can't demand constant perfection and still call it love. Real love says, I see your chaos, and I still choose your heart. But faith isn't passive. It doesn't mean staying in something that's destroying you. It means staying committed to truth. Even if that truth requires distance for healing. Faith can look like waiting. It can look like praying. It can look like setting boundaries out of love, not anger. It trusts that time and truth will reveal what's meant to last. When you operate from faith, you learn to breathe through uncertainty instead of panicking. You stop demanding instant answers and start appreciating the mystery of growth. Because everything real takes time. Love, healing, forgiveness, purpose. Faith is what gives you the strength to wait for things to bloom at their natural pace. Sometimes, faith means believing that what looks like an ending is just a transformation. Maybe the relationship shifts form. Maybe it teaches both souls something they couldn't learn any other way. Faith accepts that growth doesn't always look like staying. Sometimes it looks like letting go with grace. But when two people both carry faith, faith in each other's growth, faith in the bond they share, something remarkable happens. They stop fighting to prove love and start nurturing it. They speak with more patience. They listen with more presence. They stop keeping score and start seeing the bigger picture. They begin to realize that every challenge, every silence, every tear, it's all shaping them into stronger, more conscious partners. Faith teaches endurance. It teaches the beauty of not yet. It allows you to rest in the uncertainty without losing hope. And in a world obsessed with instant gratification, that patience becomes sacred. Because growth doesn't announce itself. It unfolds quietly through small moments of honesty, forgiveness, and continued effort. And here's the paradox. The very moment you choose to believe without evidence is often the moment something starts shifting. Not because faith magically fixes everything, but because it changes you. It transforms fear into calm, control into surrender, impatience into wisdom. And when you shift, the energy of the relationship shifts too. Faith doesn't guarantee the outcome, but it guarantees peace in the process. It gives you strength to love without clinging, to trust without proof, to hope without conditions. It reminds you that everything worth building requires unseen work, just like a tree that grows downward before it rises. So when life becomes unclear, when love feels distant, when everything inside you wants to give up, choose faith. Believe in the growth you can't yet measure. Believe in the unseen version of your partner, the unseen potential of your bond, and the unseen strength inside you. Because faith is not pretending the storm doesn't exist. It's standing in the rain, hand in hand, saying, "We may not see the sun yet, but I know it's coming." And that belief, quiet, unseen, unwavering, is what keeps love alive when evidence disappears. It's what transforms ordinary relationships into lifelong journeys. Because love without faith is fragile. But love built on faith can survive anything. In real love, leadership isn't dominance, it's direction. It's not about who has control. It's about who has clarity when the other loses it. Love is a journey through unknown territory, and every journey needs direction. But in a relationship, direction isn't a single voice shouting commands, it's two souls, learning how to move in rhythm, taking turns leading through different storms. There are days when you're the strong one, calm, certain, grounded. And there are days when the person beside you carries that light instead. Leadership in love means recognizing when it's your turn to guide and when it's your turn to trust. It's the quiet understanding that real strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's the hand that simply refuses to let go. In a world obsessed with control, we've forgotten that leadership can be soft. It can be a whisper that says, "We'll find our way," when fear makes everything else unclear. It can be patience in the face of chaos. It can be the decision to forgive, even when your ego wants to fight. Leadership in love isn't about being right. It's about choosing what's worth it. Think about it. The strongest leaders in history didn't rule with fear. They inspired with vision. They reminded people who they could become. And in love, the same rule applies. A true partner doesn't dominate you. They elevate you. They don't control your path. They help you see it clearer. That's the kind of leadership love needs. Not control, but collaboration. Because relationships are not competitions. They're collaborations between two imperfect humans trying to make sense of life together. One might lead with logic, the other with emotion. One might guide through words, the other through actions. But both, when aligned with empathy, move as one. Leadership in love is knowing when to speak and when to listen. It's not about shouting directions. It's about reading the emotional map together. Sometimes your partner doesn't need advice. They need assurance. They need you to say, "I know it hurts, but I'm here, and we'll figure it out. That's leadership. Steady presence in the middle of uncertainty. Here's the truth. Every relationship will enter the unknown. Every couple will face moments where the road ahead disappears. A financial setback, a health crisis, emotional distance, loss, or exhaustion. Those moments reveal who leads from ego and who leads from heart. Ego says, "Follow me." Heart says, "Let's walk together." The greatest leaders don't drag others forward. They light the way. They make others feel safe enough to keep moving. In love, you do that not through words, but through consistency. When your partner knows you'll still show up, even when things aren't perfect. That's leadership. That's love in motion. Leadership also means accountability. It means admitting when you're wrong, when you hurt them, when your pride got in the way. Because nothing destroys connection faster than pretending you're always right. The truth is, leadership without humility becomes tyranny, and love without humility becomes distance. You don't need to be perfect to lead in love. You just need to be willing to grow, to learn, to apologize, to rebuild. Leadership is not about never falling. It's about standing up together after the fall and saying, "All right, that didn't break us. What did it teach us?" One of the most powerful forms of leadership is emotional regulation. When one person's emotions spiral, the other becomes the anchor. You breathe slower so they can breathe again. You speak softer so they can calm down. You choose understanding instead of escalation. That's leadership, emotional intelligence in action. And make no mistake, leadership in love doesn't belong to one gender, one role, or one personality. It flows back and forth like a tide. Some days, you'll be the calm one. Some days, you'll be the one breaking apart. What matters is that you trust the balance, that both of you are willing to lead when needed and to lean when tired. Because leadership in love isn't about power. It's about responsibility. It's about asking, what energy am I bringing into this space? If you bring chaos, your partner feels it. If you bring peace, your partner heals in it. That's how powerful your presence is. You lead through the atmosphere you create. True leadership also means having vision, not just for yourself, but for both of you. It's the belief that your connection has purpose beyond comfort. It's looking at your partner and saying, "We're not just surviving, we're building something meaningful." Maybe it's a family, maybe it's a shared dream, maybe it's a life of peace. But whatever it is, leadership means protecting that vision from doubt, distraction, and ego. Sometimes leadership means stepping back, letting your partner take the wheel when their strength is needed more than yours. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It's knowing that love is not a hierarchy. It's a relay. You pass the baton when your hands are shaking, and they do the same when yours are steady again. Leadership also means guidance in the dark, not through perfection, but through faith. You may not have all the answers, but you can still say, "We'll get through this." You can still remind them of who they are when they forget. You can still lead by example, showing calm in chaos, forgiveness after anger, hope after heartbreak. That's what leadership looks like when the lights go out. And if you think about it, that's how love truly deepens. Not in the easy days, but in the days when everything seems lost. Because when you've walked through confusion, fear, and doubt together, and you both still reach for each other's hands, that's leadership that transforms two individuals into a team. Great relationships are built by two leaders who know when to lead and when to follow. Both grounded in humility, both guided by empathy. They challenge each other without cruelty. They comfort each other without pity. They push each other to grow, not to compete. They don't ask who's in charge. They ask, how can we both rise? Leadership in love is spiritual in nature. It's service, not superiority. It's saying, I'm not above you, I'm beside you. It's choosing to protect peace instead of pride. It's choosing to guide through example instead of argument. Because every time you lead with gentleness, you teach your partner that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. And when both people carry that mindset, something beautiful happens. There's no war for control. There's only partnership. Each becomes a compass for the other, pointing north when confusion tries to pull them south. That's what keeps love from getting lost in the chaos of life. So the question isn't who leads. The real question is, how do we move forward together? Because in true love, leadership is shared. It's fluid. It's mutual respect in motion. It's learning to take turns carrying the map when the road gets unclear. At its core, leadership in love means becoming a safe place for growth, a space where both people can stumble, rebuild, and still believe in tomorrow. It's being the calm in someone's storm and trusting they'll be yours when your turn comes. That's what guiding each other through the unknown really means. Not perfect direction, but unwavering devotion. Not control, but care. Not follow me, but walk with me. Because love, real love, is not about who leads the dance. It's about how beautifully two souls learn to move as one when the music changes. And here we are, standing at the edge of everything we've walked through. The bruises have faded into memory, the silence has softened into understanding, and the lessons have carved themselves into something unshakable inside you. This is where all those nights of confusion, all those moments of almost breaking, start to make sense. Because everything you've lived, every failure, every ache, every goodbye, was never about losing love. It was about learning what love really is. You began in recognition. You looked in the mirror and saw the truth of who you were. Not perfect, but present. You stopped chasing approval and started facing reality. That's where strength was born, in the mirror, not the mask. Then came ownership, the moment you realized love demands responsibility, not the kind that cages you, but the kind that frees you. You stopped blaming others for your broken pieces and started holding them with your own hands. And when the world asked for proof, you answered with action. No more empty promises, no more waiting for someone to fix it. You showed up again and again. Consistency replaced excuses. Motion replaced words. And that motion carried you through failure, the part no one likes to talk about. The falling, the doubting, the silence between apologies. But even there, you learned that love isn't destroyed by the fall, it's revealed by what survives it. From failure, you built an environment, a sacred space where both hearts could breathe, evolve, and heal. No manipulation, no control, just room for growth. And in that space, you found legacy. Not in what people said, but in what you became. Patience became your pattern. Forgiveness became your language. And pain, yes, pain became your teacher. It stripped away illusion until all that was left was truth. Faith followed pain, like dawn after endless night. It whispered that love isn't something you lose. It's something you learn. You learn to trust again, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And that faith turned you into a leader. Not one who commands, but one who carries. You stopped asking for direction and started becoming it. And now, transcendence. This is where love evolves into purpose. This is where it stops being about what you get and starts being about what you give. Because the person who truly loves you didn't just hold your heart. They handed you a mirror that showed your own potential. They challenged you, stretched you, and sometimes even broke you open so the light could enter. That's not cruelty. That's creation. Look back for a moment. Everything connects now. Recognition taught you honesty. Ownership taught you discipline. Action taught you courage. Failure taught you resilience. Environment taught you balance. Legacy taught you impact. Pain taught you compassion. Faith taught you vision. Leadership taught you direction. And transcendence, this moment, teaches you meaning. You see, love was never the goal. It was the process. The forge where all those lessons burned into wisdom. And now you walk differently. You speak differently. You love differently. You no longer chase validation because you carry it inside. You no longer fear being alone because you've met the person you were always meant to become. You were searching for someone to stay. Now, you are the one who stays. You were looking for someone to understand you. Now, you understand yourself. That's the evolution of love. It doesn't end in romance. It ends in revelation. And when you think back to that opening moment, that story of love as bandwidth, not butterflies, you finally see it. Bandwidth means capacity, and capacity means power. Real love was never measured by how much it thrilled you, but by how much it expanded you. How much it taught you to stretch, to trust, to believe again. That's why it hurt. That's why it mattered. Because love was never meant to keep you comfortable. It was meant to make you capable. You've fallen forward through recognition and ownership, climbed through failure and faith, built through environment and leadership, endured through pain and legacy. And now you stand here, unbreakable. Not because life stopped testing you, but because you stopped shrinking beneath it. Listen, this is not the end. This is the awakening. From this point forward, you don't love out of fear of losing. You love from strength. You love from choice. You love as a builder, not a beggar. You no longer chase people who misunderstand your worth. You attract those who match your frequency. Because love at this level is not emotional dependency. It's emotional clarity. It's not possession. It's partnership. It's not the question, do you love me? It's the declaration, we rise together. And now the circle closes. That person who truly loves you, the one who asks those two questions, has been teaching you all along. Not why aren't you enough, but how can I stand with you, and how can we rise together? But here's the deeper truth. You've become that person. You're the one who now asks those questions. You've become the love you were looking for. And that's transcendence. That's purpose. That's power. Because when you've learned to lead with empathy, to fail forward, to nurture your environment, to turn pain into faith and faith into leadership, you no longer love from scarcity. You love from abundance. You no longer fall apart when people leave. You stand taller, Knowing love was never about who stayed. It was about who you became when they left. You are no longer waiting for love to complete you. You are love in motion. And from here on, every relationship, every dream, every challenge will reflect that truth. You will lead without fear, forgive without losing boundaries, and walk with a peace that doesn't need to prove itself. Because you've learned that leadership in love isn't control, it's contribution. And contribution is the highest form of connection. And as the music swells, as this moment stretches into forever, remember, the story didn't end with heartbreak. It began with awakening. Because you are no longer defined by who left. You are defined by who you became when they did. You are the mirror, the builder, the healer, the leader, the believer. You are the legacy of every wound that refused to close until it found its meaning. You are love, sharpened by struggle, sanctified by growth, sealed by grace. And now you walk forward, unshaken, unchained, unstoppable. Because you are recognition, you are ownership, you are action, you are failure refined into wisdom. You are the environment of peace. You are the living legacy. You are pain transformed into compassion. You are faith forged through fire. You are leadership in love. You are transcendence itself. So tell me, now that you know what love truly means, how will you use it? Because the world doesn't need another person searching for completion. It needs someone who knows they already are. And that's you.